Housing is the top issue in Montreal's upcoming election. It's easy to see why. Rents have doubled in 6 years in a city where 60% of the population is made up of renters. Which party has the best plan to address the housing crisis? What could the city actually do to help tenants? We talked to some experts about the logic of the private market, social housing, and how the candidates would face the crisis. I've come to the offices of the RCLALQ to ask a housing expert what he thinks about the party platforms. The RCLALQ is a tenants' rights organization that groups together all the housing committees across Quebec. Today, we'll look at the municipal election platforms and talk about which promises could have an impact for renters feeling squeezed by the housing market.
Well, Ensemble Montreal, if you read their platform, the housing crisis shows up in a big way. It's one of the first things they talk about, but start off their platform saying there aren't enough buildings being built. There aren't enough construction sites going off. I think it kind of gives you a good sense of some of the overall the way they look at the problem. But clearly it's somewhat more of a private sector approach of we need to build more, and that should help there be more affordable housing. There's that orientation more towards private sector solutions, which we at the RCLALQ are quite skeptical of and not very excited about. I mean, if building more buildings was going to solve the housing crisis, then things would be going great in Toronto. They've built all sorts of towers, there's all sorts of condos, but unfortunately, it's not a solution. So Projet is more of they've got quite a mixed bag. They have a bunch of different promises around housing, including taxing vacant housing, which is something you don't see in Ensemble Montréal. You also see them a little more tougher on Airbnbs. The Ensemble Montréal has some stuff about Airbnbs too, but in terms of what seems to be sort of applicable and easy to apply on the ground, it's a lot less clear how they would actually manage, how they would actually get inspectors to apply what they're suggesting, because they're suggesting basically that anyone could rent out their home for up to 90 days. How are you going to prove that a listing is illegal and it goes beyond 90 days? Already there's a big problem where the inspectors are having a very, very hard time proving that there's a distinction between, your primary residence or not your primary residence. Projet Montréal seems to have a lot more of a sort of realistic approach to how can we more effectively control Airbnb, which clearly keeps, getting around the different kinds of regulations. The Action Montréal platform on housing is very short. It's not very clear. There's kind of anecdotes in there almost. They talk about a specific housing project in a specific neighborhood and then another specific housing project in another neighborhood. It's not clear that they've really put a whole lot of effort in and really done their homework and come up with a more structured approach. Well, Transition Montréal, they also don't have a really long developed platform in the way that Projet and Ensemble do. There are some interesting things in there in terms of a registry for leases to help tenants be able to prove what the last tenant paid, to help help tenants sort of have information that would allow them to sort of better negotiate with landlords and better apply the laws that exist, which are supposed to control rents better, but that often, if you don't have proof of what the last tenant paid, then you're out of luck and you can't really make the law apply. They also talk about a tax on basically certain luxury properties, ones that are over, I think it's $3.5 million for a single family home. So that's kind of interesting. It kind of sets them apart from other parties. Clearly, Projet Montréal and Ensemble have more gone into a lot of different measures and details and approaches to dealing with the housing crisis.
I wanted to look into social housing as a solution, so we met with Catherine Lussier from FRAPRU, an organization advocating for the construction of social housing. She told me that FRAPRU is disappointed by the lack of engagement from the two leading parties in social housing construction.
Obviously, one of the things that is deceiving us is that there is no global objective of development of social housing in any of the platform of the main political party. And we know that social housing is the one that will answer truly to the needs of the most urgent tenants, the one that are at the door of the homelessness. And definitely that is something that being deceiving from all the different platforms we have seen. We have few concerns, notably because they want to remove the 2020 bylaw and replace it by something that is more voluntary. If we want truly to develop social housing, we truly want to develop housing that also mitigate the impact of those big developments, we need to, force the developers to do it. We need to give them what is the vision of the city we want to develop. For Projet Montréal, I think after all the campaign they have done in the last 8 years, it was deceiving to just see them a bit like giving up on social housing and going only on out of the market, which includes social housing, but without any objective, we don't know how much of those that they want to develop that will answer to the most urgent need, because the out of the market doesn't assure us that it's going to be affordable at the moment of the delivery, only that it will by time become affordable, but we cannot wait 10 or 15 years that those become affordable for tenants or at actually the ones right now looking for places to stay, cannot pay their rent or at the edge of the eviction. So we need something that is affordable right now. So we consider that Montreal has this capacity of being a leader on yes, it's still possible to develop social housing. We may putting a program up using their land, using the different resources that they have at hand to develop maybe a little bit less, but to develop social housing that will specifically answer the needs. But obviously non-municipality in Quebec can develop without financing from the provincial government, and we're worried of seeing the provincial government disengaging more and more himself from the financing social housing. Without the help of the Quebec government, it's much more harder to arrive to deliver those projects. And for us, that's one of the things that the Quebec government needs to change his vision and definitely reinvest in social housing, even though he's considering that is a cost. Social housing is more than an investment, and the social investment, it supports a lot of other systems. So if we weld a house, there is a lot of other costs that are reducing, and we have to see social housing as an investment, not as a cost like the Quebec government is putting it right now.
Why is there so little political will to build social housing when we know it's one of the most effective tools to keep rents affordable? We spoke to Renaud Goyer, a professor of social work at UQAM who's researching housing policy, about governments disengaging from building social housing.
Dans les années 80 et des années 90, il y a eu un désinvestissement, dans le fond, par rapport aux logements sociaux. Puis dans des endroits qui étaient considérés comme des hauts lieux de ces logements sociaux-là. Comme ici, aujourd'hui, on est aux habitations Jeanne-Mance. Dans les années 90, c'était considéré comme une espèce de ghetto de pauvres problématique avec des hauts taux de criminalité. Mais c'est parce qu'il y avait un sous-investissement de cette solution-là. Donc, il y avait une mauvaise presse autour de ça, comme si c'était pas la bonne solution, parce que ça déresponsabilisait les locataires par rapport à leur milieu de vie. C'était le récit qu'on avait. Or, les gens qui vivent en logement social, ils ont plus de contrôle sur leur milieu de vie parce qu'il y a des comités démocratiques de résidents qui permettent d'avoir ce qu'on a ici maintenant aux habitations Jeanne-Mance. Ça a permis d'avoir de l'intervention, des milieux de vie qui sont plus accueillants. Mais il y avait ce discours-là qui était présent. Mais aussi, c'est que le logement social, ça c'est une hypothèse, hein? Je ne suis pas dans la tête nécessairement des candidats. En même temps, c'est que la ville, elle attire ses revenus de la valeur foncière. Et les logements sociaux dans une ville, ça limite la valeur foncière des immeubles. Donc, ce qu'ils veulent, c'est justement beaucoup d'unités du marché pour faire augmenter la valeur, ce qui augmente leurs revenus, parce que c'est la principale source de revenus, c'est les impôts fonciers. Et donc, le logement social, si on prend par exemple Blue Bonnets, puis on fait juste du logement social dans cet endroit-là, on va nous dire « Ah, ça va être un ghetto de pauvres », puis en plus, la valeur au pied carré va rester la même qu'aujourd'hui. Alors que si tu t'insères du privé là-dedans, la valeur foncière va augmenter, puis la ville va tirer des taxes de cet endroit-là, ça ne sera pas juste une dépense. Mais donc, c'est totalement juste pécunier et financier comme logique. Donc, c'est comme si on laisse au marché le soin d'organiser, dans le fond, la politique du logement, en limitant les barrières, puis en n'organisant pas qu'est-ce qu'on devrait construire. Sauf que ça, c'est une politique qu'on a adoptée depuis plusieurs années. Puis dans les 20 dernières années à Montréal, cette politique-là n'a pas fonctionné. Il y a eu des années de grand boom de construction, mais pourtant, pour les locataires, l'abordabilité n'est pas au rendez-vous. Il y a peu de logements disponibles et ils sont très chers. Donc, inonder le marché, ça n'a pas fonctionné, en fait. Parce que cette idée là, du que ça fonctionnerait comme par ruissellement. Au minimum, ils pourraient proposer des programmes de construction de logements sociaux, même s'ils n'ont pas les moyens, mais pour construire une espèce de rapport de force avec les niveaux de gouvernement supérieurs, puis les forcer à la limite à ne pas s'entendre dans une chicane de compétences dont la ville pourrait bénéficier. Mais c'est comme si on ne veut pas rentrer dans cette logique-là. On prétend que le marché encore va régler les problèmes. Puis ça, c'est délaisser la responsabilité, dans le fond, à d'autres. Les acteurs politiques, je pense qu'ils peuvent faire quelque chose. C'est sûr que peut-être que les unités au départ ne seront pas énormes, mais on va faire quelque chose. Puis pourquoi c'est important? C'est parce que le logement social, c'est de l'abordabilité pour tout le monde que ça garantit. Ça, c'est les recherches le montrent, plus les pourcentages de logements sociaux, véritablement sociaux, là, c'est-à-dire le logement public à 25 % du revenu, plus c'est élevé dans une ville ou dans une société, plus l'abordabilité est au rendez-vous. Et je refuse que quelqu'un dise on n'a pas les pouvoirs pour le faire. C'est en attendant, est-ce que tu manques d'imagination donc, comme politicien? Okay. C'est ça aussi, c'est qu'on manque, il me semble qu'il y a un manque d'imagination quand on répond je peux pas le faire.